Hi, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at elleruss.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, just a quick 1-minute announcement to let you know about my virtual courses and free masterclasses. I have courses and free masterclasses based on both of my books. I have the Ultimate Thyroid Course. This is your answer to solving any thyroid issue, whether it be Hashimoto's, radioactive iodine, thyroidectomy after thyroid cancer, or just general hypothyroidism. Reverse T3 issues as well. It's an incredible value at 17 modules and 29 hours of content with amazing guest expert tutorials. I also offer the Ultimate Confidence Course. That is 15 modules and 14 hours with also a few guest expert tutorials. An incredible value, and I have free masterclasses on both of those topics as well. Visit elleruss.com to learn more. Sara Banta is on the show with us today. She's a friend, health colleague on and off the show. We've interviewed each other many times. She really is a wonderful health advocate and has created a life around that. Welcome, Sara. How are you?
I'm great, Elle. I always love talking to you. You're so much fun and honest, and your energy just exudes. And I think that's why everybody loves hearing you.
Oh, thanks. So I want to start out because you have, wonderful coaching practice, lots of wonderful natural supplements, things to help people on the integrative journey along with whatever it is that they're struggling to overcome. And let's start with sort of, usually a lot of us get into this game because we were affected or a family member was affected. So tell us about the health journeys going on with you and your family over the years that sort of led you into searching and seeking and then finally providing people with answers.
Yeah, if you had told my 16-year-old self that I'd be in front of a microphone on a daily basis, podcasting, I was shy. I was quiet. I was not the loud girl in the friend group. I got swallowed by those girls. But I was always a type A personality. I worked hard in school. I worked hard at rowing and volleyball. So athletics was a big part of my life, and I wanted to win. I wanted to quietly win. But with that, you actually have to take care of your body. So I knew I came from a mom and dad that never had weight problems. And I had siblings that could care less about food. So a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, a lot of junk. And back in high school, those were the days of the fat-free diet. Frozen yogurt was fine. Eat as much fruit as you can. It doesn't matter. But do not put any butter on your bread or on your chicken or anything like that, right? So
yep.
That was my diet. And fast forward through college and starting into my 20s, got married and just not feeling well, bloated all the time, had acne, had PCOS, hair falling out. And here I am, not a teenager anymore, but still had acne. That was not fair. Tried to get pregnant, learned that I had PCOS. No one told me that PCOS was directly related to insulin resistance. And in fact, they just said, oh, next time you get pregnant, we'll just use Clomid. And that's how we'll do it.
Yes. Or there's another one too. Is it metformin even that they might use, or is it just Clomid?
Well, metformin wasn't around back then.
Oh, that's right. It was Clomid was the only answer, because the PCOS thing happened to me, and I'm glad you mentioned that it's related to insulin resistance, which is why it's also related to thyroid. Because when if your thyroid was done and completely hypo, you're going to naturally become insulin resistant. And then now, right, it's the cascade domino effect. So I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we can get into that further down the hour, but I thankfully got pregnant 3 times. Second time, I'm in my pregnancy, 23 weeks in, think I'm going into labor, but go to the hospital. The nurse looks at me and says, well, is this a boy or a girl? Because girls have a higher survival rate. And I'm sitting here going, I'm going to be delivering this child at 23 weeks. What? Well, I was not in labor. I was having intestinal spasms. So after that pregnancy, finally go to a GI doctor. The GI doctor, after test, tubes down me, up me, around me. Oh, you've got IBS. That's it. and put
just deal with it like this is your life sentence.
This is my life sentence. So then fast forward to pregnancy number 3. Now my body has gone through the ringer, and any mom out there knows that that body is going to sacrifice you for that baby. So all your nutrients are stripped of you, going straight into that baby. And so I was just at rock bottom after pregnancy number 3. I thankfully found a practitioner who is now my mentor and helps create a lot of my supplements. But he scanned me with this machine called the Scale machine. It's a frequency-based machine, Tesla technology, which I actually use a handheld version of it that is available to anyone that wants it at a reasonable price. But the Scale machine is the big bad boy that scans over 10,000 items in your body, and started going through all of my health issues. I was, like I mentioned, PCOS. I was heavy metals were through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
I had, on the verge of Crohn's disease, super anemic. He when he first saw me and saw my scan, he goes, "I don't know how you walked into my office." He goes, "How did you get out of bed?" And so it was pure will that I was living. And, I had family members at that time saying, "Oh, you just need to be put on an antidepressant. You're fine." And this is something that I'm really passionate about now. Who is being misdiagnosed for depression or anxiety when it actually is a thyroid issue or something else that's the root cause?
I'll interject there and say nonstop, because I actually met the head psychiatrist at a psychiatric hospital here in Los Angeles. And I asked him, before you put people on like psychiatric medication, do you run a full panel? They don't. They just do the TSH. So they're not even ruling it out. Everybody has to rule that out. And I talk a lot about that in my book and everything else. So, and even my thyroid masterclass, but to people out there, please, I'm not saying you don't need something like that. I'm just saying that's not always maybe the first order of business. And there needs to be in-depth testing to see, is something else causing the depression?
Exactly. And I was smart enough to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And we started to peel my health like an onion. I got off, I was pretty much off gluten anyways, but I started changing my diet to more organic, sticking to more of a higher protein diet. Back then, keto wasn't around yet. But I was smart enough to clean up my diet a little bit. And as I was on my journey, my eldest child, Jackson, was 9 years old, and he started faltering. School was not easy for him. He didn't want to go to his 20-minute swim lesson. His skin started to turn yellow. And I thought, so we scanned him. And my practitioner looked at me and he goes, "I want him to go get a full blood panel. And insurance is not able, I don't want insurance to pay for it, because when insurance pays for it, and if there's cancer or anything, you are forced to do, Western medicine. So we don't want to do that." He didn't tell me what he saw. And then he said, we also want to do live blood cell tests. And that's where you put the cells underneath the microscope. Well, I went to that practitioner, did the blood cell test, and she said, "Sara, he's got leukemia. If you don't do anything about this now, then we are going to have a very serious conversation in a year from now." And I just started.
Worst news ever. Worst.
Right. And I just started crying. And Jackson looks at me and he goes, "Mom, why are you crying? You're going to fix me." And it was that moment, Elle, where it wasn't about me anymore. I could have thrown my health to the side. I didn't care. It was all about him. And I said, "You're right." I said, "I don't quit on anything, whether it's school or sports or now my children." And we started out with what's now my flagship product, the Accelerated Silver, started putting him on that. But that was 11 years ago. So I wasn't any longer microwaving my breast milk and microwaving corn dogs for his diet. I knew better than that, but I was doing as much as I could, but I didn't know even what I know now as far as the healthy wrong foods that could be tripping up your system. Just with the one change that we made in 1 year, we went back and had his blood redone. And not only were the cancer cells gone, but his blood looked so beautiful. The cells were nice and dark and plump. He had his energy back. He not only was doing short little swim lessons, but he had now started playing water polo. And I don't know if you know about water polo, but it's like they put those kids through the ringer.
I'm a swimmer and I swim sometimes next to like water polo teams. So rigorous and brutal. No, thank you. Seems like a total nightmare exertion.
Yeah, it's funny. And these boys are just addicted to it. So anyway, he was doing that. And since he was 9, fast forward, he's now 20 years old, University of Utah, skiing and mountain bike riding in the same day, hasn't been sick in 11 years. All 5 of us in our family, the 3 kids, me and my husband, have tested at least twice each positive in the last 2 years with no symptoms. And so back then, when I realized what I had here with just one supplement, I go, there's so much more I want to learn. I have to share this with the world. And I created my website for one product, and that was it. And mind you, my family that thought I needed to be put on antidepressants and my health was in the toilet, they looked at me and said, you're the last person we're going to trust with health. So they actually didn't even want to talk to me. I had estranged relationships with my siblings for a couple of years over this. And I just put one foot in front of the other. I said, you know what? I've got a purpose in life. And I'm not going to try to convince those in my life that don't trust me or need me. I'm going to have and trust God, the universe, whatever that means to you, that those who need me are going to find me. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, one product after another, started healing myself. My son was on the road to his health. But meanwhile, we then had my middle child, who was never cancer, but ever since she was born, anemic, asthma, allergies. That month of October, I feared it. I hated it every single year because that's when the weather changed in Southern California and she would get sick. And not only would she get sick, but she would get sick for weeks. And I would have to pull her out of school for weeks. And she was miserable and she wouldn't get herself dressed. And she would have a hard time just functioning as a human being. We joke now because I loved her, but I didn't like her. She made my life horrible because she wouldn't get herself dressed. And I know some of the moms out there are listening to me going, yeah, I've got a kid like that. That girl right now, asthma, allergies, wouldn't get on a bicycle to ride around the block, didn't want to do sports, let alone anything aerobic. That girl is a senior in high school. She committed to rowing crew at USC for next year.
And she killed it. Yeah, and she's killing it with the rowing.
She's killing it. And no more inhalers, no more asthma, no more anemia. And anemia is a misdiagnosed, a lot of people think it's a lack of iron. It's actually a lack of copper. And that's why I came out with a copper. So you can see that a lot of my supplements and where my business sprung from was curing and finding solutions for my own family. And I always said, ever since the first instance with my son, I always said, okay, whatever challenge is thrown at me is for a reason. So now the way I live is, okay, bring it on. I've got it. And I cannot wait to see the silver lining in this story. And that's the way I've taught my kids, even in social situations with girls. And Elle, you know how mean girls can be in high school.
The worst.
The worst.
I was a little bit one of them. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was an asshole. I'm going to just say it.
Well, my daughter went through the ringer, and even through the social stuff, I told her, I said, sweetheart, I don't know what God's doing with you with this, but I cannot wait to see what happens.
That's right.
And she has more perseverance and grit than anyone I've ever met. And I'm learning from her on a daily basis. There was one time about a year ago where my younger daughter was having an emotional breakdown. And I said something to her, and then my elder daughter said, "Mom, you're not doing her any favors. You're not validating her feelings." And I go, "Oh my gosh, you are teaching me."
Yeah. You're like, oh, called on it. You called me on it. Yeah.
Exactly. But my point is that is how I see my life and the challenges and the health challenges. So with that, I've just grown my business, and my supplements are cutting edge. If there's something good out there, let's say a magnesium supplement that I think is great, I'm not going to worry about bringing out a magnesium supplement. Why perfect or compete with something that's already great? But if I see a supplement out there that needs to be improved upon or enhanced with scalar frequencies, which is what I really focus on to enhance the efficacy of the product, then that's where I go. But I also wanted to mention those family members that weren't talking to me years ago, they're now asking me questions about their health.
Always happens, by the way. This is always the case.
And it's just so rewarding. The relationships have mended. I've never been closer to my siblings. It's all just really beautiful the way life plays out. And it's not in our timing. It's not when we want it to happen. But if you're patient and you trust, it all seems to work out.
Well, I want to comment on lots of things that were talked about here. First of all, and I think everyone listening, what this conversation is so far is a showcase in perseverance for one own's health, being one own's health advocate, not giving up on yourself, finding answers. And the other is really like the confidence that you needed and that you exude, where you're like, you know what, I don't care what anyone's going to say. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm just going to forge ahead. And look at where you are now. And then all the naysayers come back, right? You could have let those naysayers stop you in your tracks. You didn't, because you weren't available for allowing someone else's opinion of what you were doing with your life to affect your own opinion of what you were doing with your life. So I want to commend you for that, and everyone can learn from that. Also, what an amazing, it's tough for me speaking to parents. You know, I've spoken to parents all over the world whose kids are suffering. And when you talked about your son and leukemia, and I just want to give a shout out to all of the parents who are struggling with a child or children who have issues. But just know, if you're out there and there's some symptoms showing up, they're there for a reason. If your kid's always stuffy, okay, we need to look at dairy. We need to look at diet. We need to look at some other things. You know, you see things all the time. Like, why is this kid always sniffling all the time? Like, you have to notice this as a parent. Please notice it. Okay. So maybe start to be more aware, you know, of things that are out there. And also, like you mentioned, certain behaviors, you know, general lack of malaise, not wanting to participate and, you know, and doing those things, you know, when you talked like with about your daughter and your son and your family. So it's like, you know, you start to notice this, like, hey, this isn't like them, you know, oh, they're a pain in the ass. They don't want to do stuff anymore. They're a party pooper. Those are signals, you know? So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then I'd love to just transition, because, you know, you are a coach. Obviously, you have products and supplements, as you've mentioned, Accelerated Health. Do you want to just give everyone, we'll put in the show notes, but give everyone your website right now.
Well, they can find everything at sarabantahealth.com, because of all my articles, my podcasts, my group coaching, and the shop, which is Accelerated Health Products. That's all at sarabantahealth.com. And the coaching is amazing, because when I have a whole bunch of different cleanses on my website for different people, you know, and whatever your goals are, the ones that are easy to just tip your toe in the water, and the ones that want to dive all in. But what I noticed, Elle, is people get all these supplements and they show up in their mailbox, and then they don't know what to do with them, and they sit there for 2 months. And I want people to be able to ask me questions on a daily basis. I want to teach them how to diagnose themselves with the symptoms they're having. And just like you're talking with the kids, oh my gosh, I'm so passionate about parenting and kids, because these kids have no clue what to do. They need you as an advocate. And I know so many parents are like, oh, I'm just going to, ignore it. It'll go away. It won't go away. And the more you can teach your kids about health when they're young, when you're in control, when you're buying the food, when they don't have their 7-Eleven money and their bicycle, the more you're instilling in them to make the right decisions later on. And that is where this health crisis that we have in this country is going to turn around, is how your parenting and how you teach the kids. But with the coaching, I post on a daily basis deep, meaningful articles and videos to teach you about different conditions, things that are on the forefront of most people's minds, like hair loss, estrogen dominance, thyroid imbalances. Is my thyroid affecting my mental health? How do I lose weight but increase my energy without feeling hangry from a liquid diet that most people are being put on? How do I eat real food? And maybe are these wrong healthy foods triggering my inflammation or triggering my hypothyroidism? I get into all of that, but then what else is amazing in a time of isolation, in a time where people feel so lonely and depressed and anxious, it provides a like-minded group or community that everyone feels really comfortable asking their questions, and I answer right away. Unfortunately for my family, I love my work, and so you'll find me Saturday nights answering questions on my phone with my groups, and it's free, so there's no downside or risk for joining the free group coaching. But with the supplements, like I mentioned, I've taken supplements like a keto supplement and bumped it up to being puts you into ketosis, but also cleanses the liver, also increases ATP production in the body, also gives you that mental clarity and calms the brain, increases GABA and dopamine and serotonin, and makes you feel like your problems are not smacking you in your face. I have the other supplements that just improve the energy. So while you're cleansing, you feel great day one. It's so funny. I have this marketing lady that has been working for me for 3 years, but she lives in Australia and she knows my website like the back of her hand. She actually built my website. And she said, Sara, I have so much inflammation, all of my autoimmune diseases, everything's flaring up. I have arthritis. And she went on and on and on. And I said, stop. I don't care what the shipping is to Australia. I'm shipping you my Ascent Diet Cleanse. And she goes, oh, no way. Really? I said, yes. And as a return, you are joining my group coaching and you're going to actually be active in it instead of just critiquing it and editing it as a marketer. Within 1 week, she emails me and she goes, can I talk to you as a client? She goes, my fat pants don't fit anymore. Yay. And I cannot believe the amount of inflammation that's gone and my energy. And she goes, and I noticed on the website, this, and this. I dove deep and I found the problem. And I said, see, it's helping your brain power also. And you're able to work harder. She used to have to lay in bed every afternoon. And I'm now all of a sudden getting a lot more work out of her because she feels good.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, this is actually, and I think when you're in the health space at all, if you have a broad knowledge like us, then it's almost like people end up finding you somehow to get their answers, right? And I had hired someone to help me with my website, and she's helping me with some stuff, and then she calls and she's looking at my thyroid course and everything. And then she's like, I think I have a thyroid issue. She's 57. She's been exhausted her whole life going to doctors. No one's ever said anything about her. And by the way, she's really good and on top of it and gets so much done. And she's like, what would life be like if I didn't have this? And so I ended up actually being like, stop. Okay, you're going to go get these tests. Right? Same thing with you. We went through, she's improving, doing great. She started thyroid hormone. She has literally been hypothyroid for like 30 years, or more. And it's so great. And then, of course, she's then like, wow, I keep meeting women with thyroid problems. And it goes on and on and on. But it's so interesting. A lot of people who even worked for Mark Sisson at the time that I worked for him as well, had an issue and through him solved it, including myself. So it's so wonderful. Like even just some of the people you don't think, right, that are just there for, okay, she's your marketing person. And next thing you know, as she's looking at your website, she's like, oh my God, this is me. I'm a disaster.
I know. And then the other person I want to mention, this is a friend from college, and she actually suffered from anorexia in college. So after she recovered, she never really wanted to look at her weight as an issue. She, because it would trigger her. Well, fast forward, she's a mom of 5. So talk about busy. And she finally said, Sara, okay, I'm ready to do your cleanse. I don't poop. She says, I look like I'm 9 months pregnant, but I'm ignoring it because my weight is normal. And and I said, oh, you don't look like that. She sent me a picture and she looked 9 months pregnant. She has so much dysbiosis and gut issues, and her diet is horrible. She's eating, drinking the loaded coffee from Starbucks, and then you just go down the line. And so she just texted me this morning and she said, okay, 4 days in, I cannot believe the shift in my body. The issues that I didn't even know I had are
there you go. That's what it is. When you do an elimination, a cleanse, a clean out, even if it's a strict paleo, just food, getting down to some basics, it's amazing what you realize. It happened to me with the rice. So every now and then I'll still have some white rice, but when I first went paleo, I completely went grain-free. And then I remember 2 months later, I went to get sushi and I only had 2 pieces of sushi. That's very tiny, two tiny little balls of rice, not much. And then like the next day my stomach was bloated. I was like gassy. And I went to Mark Sisson at the time and I said, hey, look, this might sound like TMI. I told him what happened. I go, is this possible? Like I didn't react like that before to rice when I used to eat it regularly. And he goes, now you see, your body adjusts, get used to some offensive thing. You don't even notice, you eliminate it, you reintroduce it back and your body goes, F you, we don't want it.
Yes. And that's what I tell my clients, because they say, okay, if I eliminate all these vegetables, because I talk about sulfur vegetables, they're supposedly good for people. But a lot of us, like me. Have a problem with it. And I was on a ketogenic diet, high protein, low carb, eating tons of cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and I couldn't understand why I was so bloated. And when I found this out, I literally within 2 days, I felt like a new person. And I said, okay, if I can feel this good every day, I'll eat cardboard. I don't care what it is. I learned about oxalates, and they're, oxalates are kale, spinach, almonds, most nuts, and chocolate. And those oxalates are affecting your thyroid health, affecting your kidneys, kidney stones, arthritis, brain fog, all of these things. And you have to detox from them in a different way, a little more slowly. Well, people say, okay, well, then what do I eat, Sara? And so I give them a list of vegetables to focus on. I prioritize wild animal protein, staying away from the chicken and the poultry and conventional beef, because they're full of amyloid proteins. And now more than ever, those are wreaking havoc in the body. They're not being broken down. They're being lodged into the tissues, into the brain, causing Alzheimer's and dementia. And so you have to be more careful with your protein. So focus on the wild animal protein, focus on these few veggies that I'm talking about, and then try to introduce that broccoli back in and see what happens. And people are like, oh my gosh, it blew me up. Well,
yeah. Broccoli is bad for me. And also when you have an issue with sulfur, eggs are included in that. And so that was the one thing that was found through my genetic testing. And a friend looked at it and said, hey, do you have an issue with eggs? And I said, it's interesting you said that. The answer is no, but yes. Like I had noticed in the past, like I ate eggs my whole life, but I had started to notice in, recent years that if I ate eggs just by themselves, like with nothing else, I would feel kind of gross. Like I wouldn't have any pain or any issues, but I'd feel kind of gross. And like this feeling of like, I just want this to digest already. I wish I could start over where I had not eaten them kind of thing. I just didn't feel right. And I said, that's interesting. Let me just try to do an elimination. And I eliminated eggs for like a couple of months. And then I just went ahead and made eggs one day. And awful. I mean, the gas, the this, the that. Again, it was just another experiment, and it was due to the sulfur thing just for me to do an experiment. Now, I still eat eggs every now and then. It's just I know what I'm up for. I certainly wouldn't do it if I knew, like perhaps there might be some stuff, but it doesn't affect me as much if I do it every now and then. It's almost like the compounded onslaught regularly. And in general, it sucks. Look, eggs are cheap and wonderful. I'd love to be able to eat them every single day, but and then I agree. Of course, I agree on pasture raised meat and wild animals. A really good book on that is The Wild Diet by Abel James, a good paleo book as well. But, Sara, you offer this for people. You're giving everyone this roadmap to success here. And also I want to mention, you mentioned SaraBantaHealth.com. For everyone, that's SARA and then BANTA health.com. So SaraBantaHealth.com. I love all of the success stories, the overcoming, and what we've done with your life. You also interview people. You have a podcast or a show that you do live. And so tell us a little bit about that, because you interview people on even issues. You've interviewed me on confidence, thyroid, lots of different health subjects. And you've been doing that for a few years now.
I have. And it was funny, a little backstory. I was introduced to Justin Stellman from Extreme Health Radio, and he was the very first person to ever interview me. And I remember driving to that interview so freaked out over my mind. And I'm a Christian, and I just said, okay, God, you're speaking through me. I said, let people hear what they need to hear, and I'm just trusting. And it went well. And I thought, you know what? This is so much easier to talk once and speak to hundreds and thousands of people at once versus having phone calls with one person at a time. And I'm an introvert, so I get exhausted from too much talking, believe it or not. So now it has grown into my podcast where I interview guests like you, Elle, on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And that selfishly is my time to learn from my guests. I always love to get guests that I can learn from, because every day my goal is to learn. When I'm not working or writing, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm diving deeper in. And the more I do this work, the more I know that I need to learn. And then now on Mondays, I take a topic and I do a solo podcast on that topic. Let's take estrogen dominance, for instance. What are the symptoms to look for? What are the downsides or side effects of it? What are the dietary supplements and protocols to incorporate to reverse it naturally? And there's always a solution. I believe 97% of chronic disease is reversible. Don't mess with your teeth and your dental health, because that is not reversible. I tell my kids all the time. I said, other than that, your metabolic disease, your heart disease, your hormonal imbalances, your thyroid disease, all your gut issues. If you've had Crohn's and colitis for years and years and years, oh my gosh, I have so many clients that are reversed their gut issues like magic, who have gone to practitioners for 20 years. And then within 1 week of doing my protocol, they're like, I can't believe how good I feel. So I do those podcasts on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So I have those two every week, and they're all broadcasted over 100 channels, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, everywhere that podcasts are uploaded. So I do that. And then I do my group coaching on a daily basis. And I'm just here for everyone to support.
I love it. Well, and I also want to say, to close out this discussion, I think the main points really are, there are solutions. You have to persevere. You don't give up. You be your number one health advocate, and you continue to learn about whatever it is that ails you. And that lead you to answers, or to someone, right? Someone's perseverance is what led them to me, usually, right? Or to you, right? When you get a client or someone, and it's because they're persevering. They're not stopping. They're not accepting, and also they're still feeling a certain way. The doctors or certain practitioners aren't helping them. They need new avenues or different opinions or better physicians. So don't give up. keep going. And just Sara, just a wonderful example of, again, coming out of your shell as someone who was shy when you described at the very beginning what you were like growing up, to speaking publicly, getting the word out there, not only of helping your family and hundreds of other people across the world, but also just helping people with providing information. So grateful for what you do. Everybody go to sarabantahealth.com. And any last thoughts?
Take control of your health. It is in your control. Don't trust your doctors. And Elle and I know, agree with this, that the doctors, there's a place for them, but you are your own doctor. Your gut feeling, if things don't feel right, listen to your body, listen to your child, listen to what they're saying. If they're not eating their food, don't get mad at them. It might be because that food doesn't feel good. Your body is your best doctor and your intuition. So I'm here to help. I'm here to put together a free protocol for anybody out there that wants to email me through the website. Happy to do that. And there's hope. Like I said, you can reverse 97% of disease.
Thank you so much. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.